Yo, it's Josh here. I just want to share with you guys a little thoughts here about what does it mean to be the church. It's something I've been thinking about lately, and it's like, okay, what does it mean to be that? Now, in Greek, the word church is ekklesia, which is the called out. And it was used as a term when they would come in to a kind of a Greek or Roman town, and they would call out all the citizens, usually the men of a certain age had citizenship on that one, and they would talk through things of civil matters. Now, Paul uses that, the church, the called out ones. Now, what does it mean to be called out? Because if you think about it, being called out is not always a good thing. If you're called out, it could be you're in trouble. It's like, Josh, you're in trouble. You are called out for doing something bad. Or it could be that you're called out because you're special, because you're unique, and somehow you're above others, which actually kind of leads to some pride and some other issues that are not so good. If you think about it, it's like the Avengers in some ways are called out. They're Earth's mightiest heroes coming out to do it, right? But, I don't think that that's really the viewpoint of the ecclesia, the called out ones. And rather, I would actually kind of position that the ecclesia is almost more like the Suicide Squad of the DC fame. In that movie, you think about it, in the comics, you have a group of ruffians, of criminals and other people and meta-heroes and things all there who come together for a mission and a purpose. They don't want to be there. They're not wanting to be there. Life circumstances put them there. Croc didn't ask to have Croc features. It was thrust upon him by his genetics and the mutant. It could be that Deadshot has his daughter and he's trying to do right and trying to figure out how to make a living afterwards. And all this stuff going, each of these characters have their own stories. And yet they come together for the mission. And like any of these movies, you go back to the Dirty Dozen or sports movies where you take a bunch of people, ruffians and mismatched misfits, and you throw them together. There's always inter-team conflict, and they have to overcome that conflict in order to be able to get the mission done. So they were called out for a purpose, though. Everything comes back to that purpose. Now, you think about it, the called out ones of the church, if we're called out, what is our purpose? Well, I would suggest it's going back to Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus of Nazareth, in Luke, Chapter 4, he comes out, he's after his baptism, after the going out into fasting in the desert, the Spirit of the Lord is upon him, and he comes and he says that. He goes, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoner, recovery of sight to the blind, and to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, quoted from Isaiah 61. Now, this passage in some ways really echoes what was going back with Eve and Adam back in the garden. If you remember back then, they were told to multiply, to spread throughout the world as image bearers of Christ, of Jesus, image bearers of God, the Creator, to come through there throughout all the world and show it. They were called out from our non-human relatives, from the trees, the animals, and they said, you are image bearers. I want you to represent me throughout the world. They were never supposed to stay in the garden. They were called out from the garden to be image bearers of Christ. Now, the same thing happened in Genesis 12 with Abraham. He was called out to be able to be what? A light. He said, I will make a blessing for you and your family so you be a blessing to all the world. Israel, I call you out of Egypt so you'll be a kingdom of priests to my world. You are my treasure possession to be able to be a light for those around you. And throughout the deal, the prophets and everybody else talks about that. And then Jesus comes and he calls out the disciples, and then they call out others. And then Paul's talking, saying, I call you out, church, the ecclesia, to be my image bearers, to go and anoint, to tell the good news of the poor. We are kind of the Suicide Squad. We're the mishmash and the ruffians and all the people coming together to be able to say, you know what, we are going to go out on this mission to be in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our coffee shops, in the welding, in the farming, in just our office, in our homes, in our family structure, wherever we may be. We've been called out to be good news to the people, to set people free, to be image bearers of Christ, image bearers of the Creator to our non-human relatives as well as our human relatives, to really be able to go through there and to show the people who God is and everything else. That is the ecclesia. That is what we've been called out for, and why we're so special and exciting. We're not about just disappearing up in heaven. I've been talking a lot to my boys lately, and I've listened to a lot of Christian songs, or I listen to some of the messages, and it's all about what happens after you die. Well, that's good and that's great, but what happens about today? How do I take care of my family? How do I be able to process the disappointments of life and be able to deal with my wife and my kids and my job and my boss and the economy and COVID? I need help today. And that's the cool thing about God is we're built out to be image bearers in our neighborhood, incarnational, in our communities right now about real world things today. Yes, it is about then, but it's about now. It's a both and approach. It is, we are the Suicide Squad on mission for God, coming together. Let's get over our fighting. Let's get over our stuff and let's walk forward with Christ. That is the ecclesia. So God bless you and thank you for watching.